Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at race number 3 at Santa Anita on Saturday. Stakes action for 3-year-olds on the turf going a mile. Let's take a look at the field for the Pasadena Stakes. We got 5 in here. Now it's only 5, and that's always disappointing from a gambling standpoint. But there are some talented horses in here. The 2, the 3, and the 4 have proven themselves in stakes competition, and the 5 looks like the lone speed.
Yeah, and the 5 is a horse who, I kept on looking at it in here, Dan. I don't know, we don't really know what we're getting with Island Cruiser. I think maybe his races are a little bit better than they even look on paper. And Hector Barrios, he's one I certainly watch on the turf course out in Southern California. So it's compact, which we don't necessarily love to see, but at least the talent is there.
Throw up our time-form U.S. pace projector. It's a rare situation indeed. The gray bar. No speed, except for the 5 Island Cruiser, who went gate to wire, going a straight 6.5 furlongs last time out. There doesn't seem to be any impediment for Island Cruiser to get the lead, so it's all about, A, is he good enough, and B, how far does he want to go?
Yeah, and I think the concern is too if he gets lonely there on the lead. He's a young horse. You don't know what happens. Will he go too quick for himself? Will he get distracted out there because he's lonely? He's also a horse that he's just shown that speed really in that most recent start, right? It was on the stretch out and distance. So we'll see what happens in here. I wouldn't be surprised with a compact field, though, if other horses are kind of targeting him and making sure that he doesn't get so far in front.
I think Kazushi Kimura is going to remember how he piloted Uncle Truly, the number 1, to a maiden win at Woodbine, going a 1-turn mile 3 starts back, where he was able to get close to the pace and save ground. And I think that pace tracking ground saving trip is available to him here. Now, he didn't necessarily run great in his first start in Southern California for Jonathan Thomas, but maybe he needed one off the short break.
Yeah, maybe he did need a race. I mean, we kind of look at that race at Woodbine, and when you watch the replay, it's a good performance from him. He actually does everything that he needs to do. He had 7 other rivals. He ends up, kind of drawing clear in there after he had a little bit of a challenge. But I thought looking at his stretch run, it was good. And now since then, you can see they had some confidence. They put him in the stakes race at Aqueduct. It didn't fare too well. And at least in his return to the races, I thought he ran okay. Maybe he needed a race. Now just making that second start of his 3-year-old campaign, it's very likely that he could take a step forward here.
Peter Urtenbarn's been on a nice roll recently, and they send out arguably the horse to beat in the number 2 Stay Hot, who has won 2 consecutive stakes races in Southern California, including this one going down the hill at 6.5 in the Baffle, his seasonal debut. And Stay Hot stayed on the outside. He's widest in the stretch. He's a little bit green with his lead changes, but he gets it done. And even though he only wins by a head, you always got the feeling he was going to get there.
You did, and I think the downhill actually really played well to his running style, coming out of those longer races at a mile, both at Santa Anita and Del Mar. He's a closer, and the pace has been good enough for him in those races to make that late run and make that impact. But 6.5, they obviously went a lot quicker, and he was able to pick him up just in time. So I like that race from him, and now I actually love him stretching out to a mile. I think that's probably where he wants to be.
That time form U.S. pace projector is not kind to a horse like the number 3 Guy Named Joe, a horse that just seems like a true one-run closer. Came from out of it to win over course and distance 2 starts back. Then they tried him in the El Camino Rail Derby last time out. This race going a mile and an eighth over the Tapeta surface, and he ran okay. He fell far behind. He made a wide move into the stretch, and he's just going to flatten out late against some tough competition. Now he's getting blinkers. I wonder if that gets him into the race a little bit earlier.
It's probably the intention, or at least the hope, especially because he is, typically so far back, and his most recent effort was at a mile and an eighth. Now, the thing that I found interesting, though, was that race 2 back at a mile, they didn't really go that quick. I mean, they did go quick to the opening quarter, but they really slowed it down for the half, and he still was able to close in on that. And maybe the opening quarter is what kind of set the tone in that race, but that's how he was able to graduate. He will need some sort of action up front. If a horse like Island Cruiser walks the dog, he's probably in trouble. But time and time again, at least he's shown that he wants to try, right? He tries really hard to close in, and whether he gets the setup he needs, that's a different story.
I'm a big fan of the 4 Lord Bullington going out for trainer Michael McCarthy. This horse has won stakes races in 2 of his last 3. And the race he lost, sandwiched in between the Cecil B. DeMille, he was sort of over and behind horses against Stay Hot that day. And I wonder if he had a clearer run if he makes it a little bit closer. Here's his most recent start, the Eddie Logan, and he got a wonderful trip in this race. Saving ground throughout. The rail opens up. Rispoli's going to shoot right on through, and Lord Bullington does the rest.
And it probably helped him that opening half was a little bit slower because we found him a lot closer to the pace, especially than we did 2 starts back, but just in general. And I thought this was a really nice performance from him as well. And I think Michael McCarthy has managed him throughout his career well. Stay Hot, though, has beat him on 2 of those last 4 occasions where they met. And you can see Stay Hot's been able to get the setup there. But, at least he returned to the winner's circle. I'm curious what the tactics will be. He usually is pretty far off of it. And last time out, as I mentioned, I wonder if the pace helped him being closer, but I wouldn't mind if he could find himself in a better position early on.
Island Cruiser, never off the board from 3 lifetime starts, found the pace to his liking in this race. A maiden win going 6.5 furlongs. There just wasn't a lot of speed in this race either. And Barrios went right to the front in here, backed it down to a 46-second half mile, and then just kicks on home. I would expect similar tactics to be employed this time around as he goes 2 turns. We'll find out if he's good enough, but if you believe pace makes the race, you might actually get a decent price on this horse.
I think you might as well. I'll be curious to see kind of what the off odds are here closer to post time, what they'll be. Now, Island Cruiser, I think the thing that's interesting about him, he graduates going gate to wire, but on his debut at 6.5, they went quicker. He was further back on debut and still made a really nice late run to to lose, I should say, by a narrow margin. So if for some reason he misses the break or anything crazy happens, I still think he can fly with a late run. It's just going to really change the complexion of the race because, as we talked about on paper, he looks like if he wants the lead, he can have it.
Only a field of 5, but some talented 3-year-old turf horses and a curious pace play. It could be an interesting way to go in the Pasadena. Curious to see where you're going to go with your top pick. And you're going with Lord Bullington, a horse that has shown enough tactical speed, I think, to stay within range if the pace is glacial and has proven himself at the stakes level.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. He's proven at the stakes level. And I'll be honest, when I saw him win Santa Anita back in November, I did not back him. And then I thought, wow, he might be an all right horse. And he's kind of proved himself since then, as we mentioned with the win in the Eddie Logan. So I'm going to use him here. But I thought it was tough. We keep on saying it's a small field, but to narrow it down to one horse, if I was playing any sort of multi race wager, I cannot single him. I think this is a really tough field.
Oh, yeah, Stay Hot, the lone 3-time winner in here. Guy named Joe, it's all about whether he can remain in contact with this field. If they go slow early and they sprint home, he's going to be in big trouble trying to come from the back of the pack. So it's really incumbent for Juan Hernandez to at least stay within range. I think he's slowly getting better. 4-3-5-2 for Ashley, 3-2-4-5 for me. It's the Pasadena on a nice Saturday afternoon of racing at Santa Anita. Good luck.